Can you able to see my screen?
Uh, Not yet. Yes, yeah, we are able to see this one.
Great. Can you please start recording so that, yeah, I think it started.
Yeah, it's recording. Yeah. So once again, welcome to day 16 of free Hyperautomation UiPath training. So today we're gonna discuss something related to our framework. So yesterday we discussed the basic overview of what orchestrator capabilities can be done or not. Yeah. Over to you, Pradeep.
Cycle. So first of all, thanks for joining the session on Sunday. So today we are going to discuss about one of the uh, framework that we have available in UiPath. So we are going to discuss about the RE framework today. Going into the RE framework. So as of now, which we have covered different topics, right? We have covered about Excel, we have covered about API, database, mail related stuff, PDF related stuff, and basic UI based automation. These automations we have done, right? So we know when you are going to create a projects also, we have different kinds of options, different kinds of workflows we can create it. Let me open it. So when you are going to create a project, we can create in different ways. Like you can create a normal process, or you can create a RE framework. So what's the difference between these two? So when you are going to create a process, or when you are going to create a robotic process automation. So what is the when you are going to create a RE framework, what is the differences we have? Let me open the RE framework and let me show you. RE framework means it is a robotic enterprise framework, I can say. So let me create it. It's loading. Yeah. So this is the RE framework. So when you have created the project, you got something in the project. So you are not building it from the scratch. So you got something to use it. So what can I say? So RE framework is a template. So we are using the template to build our project. So first of all, I have one question. Why we need to use this template? So why we need to go with the RE framework? To that, I have a couple of advantages why we need to go with the RE framework first. So, okay, the first thing, let me tell you some few things about it. So, when you are going to create a project, you need some basic needs for all the project. Whichever the projects you are going to implement it, you have some basic needs you have to implement it to make that particular project as a robust, right? To make that particular project as a standard. So, a couple of things are like you should handle exception handling, should handle configurability, and you should do some kind of logging mechanism, and some kind of reusability you should do that, and retry mechanism, and modularity. So these kind of features I can say. So these are the features you have to implement it when you are using any of the project. So if you want to make the project,
Modularity means
I'll tell you. I'll go with the each step what we are going to do. I'll
okay,
explain each feature here. So
okay.
these are the features we have to do it when you are going to create a project to make it as a robust, right? So The one of each feature, let me explain each feature. So exception handling means if you are creating a project, so if you are getting any system exception or if you are getting any business exception, the project should not stop, right? It should do some kind of exception handling mechanism for it, and it should go with the next transaction or next details or something to do work on it. So that's called as exception handling. And configurability means if you are working for any one of the project, so you are using the credentials to do the login for that particular project. Okay. So you are doing the login for today. That's fine. So after 1 month, you are getting an error saying this username password got expired because you are using the static username password in the UiPath Studio. So that's the reason you will get this error, right? So if you want to change the username and password after 1 month, where you will do the change of it. So you should not do the change of it in UiPath Studio, right? You should do it in the some configurable file. So we have to use that configurable file to do the make all the configurable details available in it, right? And logging mechanism. Logging mechanism means you are having a very large project. So it's going to run it for 3 to 4. This why I'm going to explain these things means it is not a kind of sample workflow. We are not going to discuss about it. Just keep it in mind if you are going to build 2 to 3 months of projects, what kind of best practices we need to follow, right? So logging mechanism. Logging mechanism means if you are going to run the any of the project, so it is going to take 3 to 4 minutes of time to run it. So in this 2 to 3 minutes of in this like 5 to 6 minutes of time when you start running, so you should know where the bot is going on, right? So it should not be blank for next 5 minutes. It you should get some logging mechanisms. Okay, this login is done. Chrome login is done, Chrome logout is done. So you have started this particular page. You are doing these things in this page. Then you are doing these things in page. So this kind of data is imported, then data extracted. These are the data we have extracted. So you should get some kind of details. So that's called as a logging mechanism, I can say. So that we have to implement it. And reusability. Reusability means kind of projects you can close it, right? So once you are done with the project, once you are done with the entire workflow, whichever the workflows you have opened, you have to close that workflows, right? So if you want to use that particular closing workflow as a multiple times, what we have to do, we no need of building that code the multiple times, right? Whichever the workflow we have created, we can use that workflow directly. So we can use that particular workflow and we can save some time. So that's called as the reusability and retry mechanism. Retry mechanism, we know when you are working on the exceptions, we have two types of exceptions. One is system exception and one is business exception, right? So we know what kind of alternative mechanisms we have to do it. So if you are getting any system exception, what we have to do, we have to do the retry for that particular system exception because system exception should be retrainable. One of the example is like uh, Chrome is not responding. So if you are working on something in the Chrome is not responding. So at the time, what we have to do? Just we have to relaunch the Chrome and we have to do the automation for it. That's it. So, but the business exception means if you are getting an input data is a mismatch, how many times you do retry, there is no use for the business exception. So business exception will come under the exception handling mechanisms, and system exceptions will come in the part of retry mechanism in exception handling. And modularity. Modularity means pieces of code, I can say. So because if you are building the code for 3 months, so you should not build the code in only one workflow, right? The workflows should be modularability, like logging workflow. This is logout workflow. This is extracting the data from PDF workflow. This is doing some kind of classification workflow. This is something importing the data to some other application kind of workflow. So what we have to do, we have to do some kind of modularity. So when you are doing the modularity, why we need to go with it? It's very easy to debug the code. It's very easy to figure it out when you are getting an error. Because you have run the code, you got one error. So if you get an error, if the entire code in only one workflow, you have to check the entire workflow, right? To where you got an issue, right? So if you are having the modularity, then what will happen? So if you get an error, then directly you can navigate which workflow you got an error, and you can able to see, okay, this workflow we got an error. Okay, I'll navigate to this workflow, and you will see all the activities. Okay, here I am getting an error. So it's a kind of easy to navigate when you are getting an error, or it is very easy to get the values from that particular workflow. So that's the reason. This modularity also one of the feature in UiPath when you are going to use the RE framework in UiPath. So these features, whichever the features we have discussed about it now. So is these features is only for any one of the project? No, right? So these features we need to implement it for all the projects when you are going to do that. When you are going to do any projects in UiPath, you have to implement these features, right? So these features are to make the standard workflows in UiPath. So that's the reason UiPath RE framework got introduced here. So whichever the things we have discussed about, these are the basic needs. You have to implement it. You will get everything. You will get all these advantages when you are going to use the RE framework. So that's the reason. Instead of wasting the time to build this exception handling, to build configurability, to build a logging mechanism, to build a reusability, so instead of wasting the time to build these all are the features, we have all the features are available in the RE framework template. So what we can do, we can use this template and we can use that advantages to make our project as a robust. You got it, right? So whichever the advantages we have it, we'll get all the advantages here. So just we need to use this template. This is a kind of a template where you have all the advantages, where you have all the features to implement it for the basic project. So we can read that data, we can use that particular workflows, and we can build the project for it. So that's the reason. So they have built something for us and they have given for us. So using this one, we can make the robust projects in UiPath. So this is the project I have created, RE framework. Let me go to the project folder once, then we'll see which are the files got created. So let me open one normal process also. We'll do the comparison here. I'm going to create one blank process and one RE framework. RE framework we have created already. So this is the blank process. Now I am creating it. Yeah. So let me open the folder for two files. So this is a normal process when we have created. And here is the folder when we created the RE framework. So just compare it. So when you are going to create a process, normal process, you got these folders and this is the main we got it and these kind of JSON files we got it. But when you see, uh, when you compare it to the RE framework, we have different folders are available here. So you can see the data folder is available here and you can see some kind of documentation. We can see exceptions, screenshot folder and some framework folder and test folder, right? So compared to the blank project, when you created the RE framework project, we got some additional folders which are all available in UiPath project. So let me open that folders and let me show you what are the things we have it and what are the things we can do it to use that particular workflows in our UiPath. So let me open. So this is the data folder. So data folder is having input, output, and temp. So input, output, and temp means if you want to use any of the data as an input, or if you want to use, if you are going to create any data as an output, or if you want to create any temporary files in your process workflow, so we have to keep that files here as a best practice. So that's what these folders are mentioned for. Like if you are going to use any of the Excel as an input to use that Excel in your project, then what you have to do, you have to keep that Excel in the input folder. So here you need to keep it. Sorry. So the output folder is once you are done with the process. So you have to create one daily report. So which are the process we have completed, what are the things we have done it. So if you want to create any of the report, so the report should be kept in the output folder. And the temp folder means if you are creating some kind of a temp files based on your workflow, you want to create 10 Excel files, then we have to merge the 10 Excel files and you have to keep it the one final file. Means you have to save the 10 Excel files somewhere, right? So you can save it in the temp folder, and we can do that. So one thing you may have that questions why we need to use these three folders. You can create only one folder and you can do it everything mean right. So yes, we can do that, but as per the best practices, if you want to follow the best practices, you have to follow these kind of folder structure also. So that's the reason in RE framework they have provided the folders also. So just we have to use that folders and we have to work on it. And let me open what is this config file. Yeah. So here we can see the config file. So this config file is having different sheets, I can say, the setting, constants, and assets. So let me open the notepad. So here we have discussed about configurability, right? So the what is configurability? Configurability means we are going to save dynamic values. Dynamic values means one of the example is assets, and one more example is if you are going to work on the Chrome, so you have to open the URL, right? So the URL is as of now we are going to use abcd.com. So, but after 1 month, the website got updated and they changed the URL name to abcde.com. So, when you are applying the ABCD, so will that URL will work? No, right? Because it got upgraded to ABCD and E.com. So, what will happen at this situations? We are not going to do the change in our studio. So these kind of dynamic values, we have to keep it in the config file itself. That the config file we can see here. Here we need to do all the changes. And one more example is if you are going to read the Excel file. So in that Excel file, you are getting the data from some sheet one. Okay, every time you are getting the data from sheet one only. But as after 6 months, client informed us instead of sheet one, you have to read the data from some kind of data sheet or something in Excel. So what we have to do? Just we have to replace the value of sheet 1 to data in our config file. So that's how this configurability will work. So when you see here, you can see three sheets are available. So each sheets will store different kind of values. So when you see it in the assets, so whichever the values you want to read it from the orchestrator assets, so we'll get it here. So we know, right, assets are four types. So integer, boolean, string, and a credential. So if you want to read that particular assets, we can read the values from here. And constants. So constant means these are the project settings, like where you are going to store the exception handling, exception screenshots, and these are the logs when you are going to work on the logs, the transaction is completed or not, business tool exception and system exception, and how many times you are going to do the retry, how many times you are going to do the set transaction status. So these kind of things will get it, and in the settings, so here you can save it. So if you are going to use the queue, so this is the sample queue they have given it. So if you want to change the queue name, here you can change it. If you want to add any URL or any values, so you can add all the values here. So this is how we have to keep the configurable values. So it is easy, right? Instead of creating one Excel file, creating the sheets, putting the values and reading these values using workflow. So how much time will it take to develop this particular project itself? Will take 1 to 2 days to create one Excel file and reading each sheet in a different format, because reading the assets will be read it from orchestrator assets, and constant will be different, and the settings will be different. So if you are going to implement this particular mechanism, it will take at least 2 days to implement it, right? So instead of implementing it, instead of wasting the time for 2 days, you can use the RE framework itself. So you have everything already pre-built it. Uh, they have given Excel file also. They have pre-built the workflow also. So what we have to do? Just you have to read that workflow and you have to work on it. So that's the reason I am saying. So whichever the basic needs, you have to implement it when you are building a robust project. You will get everything in RE framework. So just we have to use the template and we have to work on it. So let me navigate to the folders back. So we'll check it, which are the things we have it more. So this is the documentation we have it. So sorry. This document is purely related to the RE framework. So when you open this documentation, you will get all the details. So why we need to go with the RE framework? What is the RE framework? Which other things are available in RE framework? So just you can go through this particular document. So you'll get a pure idea. So which are the things we have it in RE framework. So you'll get some idea about it. And let me go back. Yeah. So here we can see exceptions screenshot. Exception screenshots means, as we know. So we have business exception, system exception. So if you are getting any exceptions here, so what will we can do? Whichever the exception we got it, it can capture that particular screenshot and it can store it here. So why we need to do this functionality means, if you are getting an error, so then how you will get to know? Okay, in this screen we got an error. So how you will get to know? So you are checking the logs, but you are not able to understand where you got an error. So is that particular Chrome is opening that particular correct browser or not, or if it is the page is loaded correctly or not, or if something crash happened in the Chrome or something. So you should know about it, right? So when you see that, then only you will get to know, right? So that's the reason whenever you get exceptions, what it will do, it will capture that particular screenshot and it will store it. So that's how this exceptions screenshot folder will work. So and let me navigate to one more folder. So this is a framework folder. So what is a framework folder? And we have couple of workflows are already created in framework, right? So why these particular workflows are created here? So let me go to our advantages. So these are the advantages we have it when you are implementing the RE framework, right? So what I said, so these are things already implemented in RE framework as a template. So just we need to use that particular template to use it in our project. That's what I said. Okay. So I am telling these are the things are implemented. So where these things are implemented. So here it is, everything is implemented. So these are the workflows are the common features we can use it for all the workflows. We can use it for all the projects. So whichever the projects, if you are going to do for PDF automation, if you are going to do for Excel automation or any banking domain project or healthcare domain project, finance domain project, whichever the project it may be, but you have to follow some kind of standard best practices, right? So that standard best practices are implemented in RE framework template. So just we have to use that template and we have to work on it. So let me give high level idea about these particular workflows, what each workflow will do. So based on that, you will get some idea about it. Just I'm going to give a high level idea about each workflow. So close all applications. Let me- sorry. So here the framework. So let me double click on the close all applications. Yeah. Close all applications means what we have to do. So once you are done with the project, what we have to do as a best practices, whichever the applications you have opened it, you have to close it, right? So to do the automation, you are working on the Excel, Chrome, and some kind of PDF. So once your process is done, what you have to do, you have to close the Chrome, you have to close PDF, you have to close the Excel. So that's the best practices. Because if you're not going to close it, then if you are going to run after 1 hour, then what will happen? We'll get an error because that particular Excel is using by some other machine or some particular PDF is using by some other machine. So we can grant only read access, not the write some kind of access because it's open in some other machine. So these kind of issues you may get it. So that's the reason. Whichever the things you have opened it, you have to close it. So that's one of the best practices. We have to implement it. So we have to implement that logic here and get transaction data. So here see they have built workflow for us. So what is a transaction data means? So if you are having one queue like 100 students details, so you have to enter each student details in any one of the application, your college application or your employee application. We have to enter the data. So at that time, how you are going to do that? So you are going to take each student or employee details and you will upload the data into the applications, right? So we have to go each one by one transaction. So to going with the each transaction, so this workflow will work out. So it will read each transaction and it will give it to us. So we can use that each workflow. That's how get transaction data will work. And init all applications. So init all applications means whichever the applications you are going to use it in your project. So you have to open that particular all the applications at once. Only once we have to open it, right? So as I said, one of the example, so we have to enter the student details into the college application. So here, are you going to use, are you going to open the college application every time for each student? No, we won't do, right? We will open it only once, the college application. Then we'll enter all the details of students one by one. But we won't close the application again and we won't open it. We won't. One of the example is if you are going to book the ticket for movie or somewhere. If you are going to book a ticket in Book My Show for 10 members, so for each members, will you do it? No, right? You will open the Book My Show at once and you will book for everyone. Then you will close it. You won't do the login and log out for the Book My Show for 10 times, right? So you'll do it the login only once, but booking for all, then you will do the logout at once. So that's how. So if you are going to use the applications, whichever the applications you are going to use it, you have to do it in the initall applications. And this is initall settings. So initall setting means, as I said, we have one of the config file, right? So this config file has some values. So if you want to add any other values and if you want to read that particular Excel file, so to read this particular Excel file, we have one of the workflow that is called as the initall settings. So using this particular workflow, what we can do, we can read the data. We can read the Excel data and we can use it throughout our project. So that's why they have created this particular workflow in Init settings. And here we can see kill all process. Kill all process means sometimes you got a system exception. Okay. So you got a system exception. So when you got a system exception is saying Chrome is not responding. So you are working on the Chrome is not responding. So if the Chrome is not responding means what you have to do? You have to close that particular Chrome and you have to reopen it again, right? So I tried for closing. So what will happen? So if the Chrome is not responding, how we can close it? We can't even close it, right? So it will get stuck. So at that time, what we have to do? We have to kill it. Kill it means we are killing the application itself. Like we are killing that particular Chrome itself. How we will kill it? Like as a manual, we'll do some go to the task manager, then a particular Chrome, and if you are going to right click on it, then you'll get it end the task, right? So this is how we'll do the kill. So that's how we can do the same in UiPath. So we can using the kill process, we can able to kill it. And next one is process. Process means process will be different when you are going to implement it for each process, each project, I can say. So because as per the business requirement, so for your company, the project is different. As per my company, the project which are the project we have to implement it is different. I think you may work on Excel, I may work on the PDF, someone can work on some other related stuff. So based on the project, so the workflows will be different, right? So whichever the workflows are dynamic based on your project needs, you should implement that projects in the process. So here you have to create multiple workflows and you have to work on it. So that's where the process will come. The process will do whichever the project requirement you have to do it. So that's how we have to do it in the process. And this is for retry current transaction. So let me open the notepad once. So when you see, we have discussed about retry mechanism, right? Retry mechanisms means if you are getting in a system exception, what system exception means, as I said, it's an issue from the machine. So then what we have to do? We have to do the retry. So how many times you are going to do the retry? So we are not sure, right? So you have to mention it. So if you are going to do the retry for 2 times, or if you are going to do the retry for 3 times, or if you are going to do the retry for only once, or if you don't want to do the retry also, that's fine. So how we are going to do that, and how many times you are going to do that? So that the mechanism already pre-built in RE framework, and this is the workflow for it. See, they have created entire workflow. So how we are going to do the retry, how we are going to work on it. So how the retry mechanism will work. So here you can see a couple of things are available. So this is how the retry mechanism will work. And the set transaction status. Set transaction status means if you are working on the each transaction, that particular transaction means if you are going to enter the student details into the application. So as I said, if you are having 100 student details, means each student is one transaction, right? So for 100 students, end of the day, I need the report. So how many students we can able to enter it? How many students we got an exception as a business? How many students we got an exception as a system? So except these three ways, we don't have any other way, like any other route to go, right? So only we have these three. So here we can see success, business exception, and system exception. So here where we can change the status of the each transaction. When you are pushing this data to the queue for 100 transactions, once the each transaction is done, we can able to see the status. So is that particular transaction is success, or is that particular transaction is business exception, is that particular status is system exception, we can able to see that. And take screenshot workflow. Take screenshot workflow means, as we discussed, if you are getting any system exception, so what you have to do? So if you are getting any system exception, you should know why you got a system exception. So, right, as per our RE framework, so it won't stop the code where you are getting an error, right? So what it will do? So whichever the process we have opened it, it will close all the applications and it will close entire whichever the applications we have opened it and it will get stopped, right? So it started and it ended. But in the logs, when you see you got an error saying system exception or business exception. But how to believe it? Is our bot is working fine or not? So to check that, you can see the screenshots. So that screenshot will be taken using this particular workflow, and whichever the screenshots we have taken, that particular screenshots will be available in the exception screenshots folder. So you can get all the screenshots here. So that's how RE framework template will work when you are working on the RE framework. So you get these all the features. So these things are the basic needs. We can use it for any projects you are going to implement it. Any large project you are going to implement it in UiPath. So any questions for RE framework template? So I'll give 1 to 2 minutes of time for questions. So if there is no questions, then we'll go with the RE framework structure, why it is having this way. So here we have 4 states, right? 4 states and different kinds of transactions, navigations we have it. So we'll discuss about it. Before that, do you have any questions about these basic needs and why we are going to use RE framework? And what's the difference between the normal blank process between the RE framework? So any doubts? I'll give just 30 seconds, then we can resume it again. Yeah, thanks, Kiran. Thanks for explaining all the doubts here in the chart. So we got something here. So could you please explain again for process and get transaction? So let me. So process means, so whichever the workflows you are going to create it, because these are a template we are going to use it. But as per your project, so each scenarios are different, right? So you may work on the onboarding process. I may work on the some kind of exit process. So this process will be different. The project will be different, right? So which is your project? So based on your project, you have to build your own workflows here. So RE framework is kind of giving the best practices to you, right? Using that best practices, you have to create your own project. So whichever the project you are creating it by your own, so you have to keep it in the process here. So that's how the process will work. And one more thing is get transaction. So get transaction, as I said, right? This RE framework is the queue-based transactions. So if you are want to read the data from 100 students, so we have to read it from the queue. So you can get the data from the queue. So each transaction, if you are using the 100 details, so you are not going with the 100 at once, right? You have to enter each student. So to enter each student details, that particular transaction mechanism will work. So that this transaction mechanism, we are reading it in the get transaction data. Yes. So these are the things, close all applications and get transaction. When you are going to create a project, by default you will get everything. By default you will get these all the details. So these are the best practices. You will get it by default itself. Yeah. Let me go to the main of RE framework. Yeah. So first of all, this RE framework is a combination of sequence, combination of flowchart, and the combination of state machine. So when you are using the RE framework, so it is having all kind of workflows are built, pre-built in RE framework. Just we have to use this particular template to make our project as a robust as we discussed. So when you open the RE framework, you can see these four states: initialization, get transaction data, process transaction, end process, right? So these four we are doing it. These four states we are working on it. In these four states, we have some transitions from each state to each state. From initialization to get transaction data, we have some successful, and from get transaction data to process transaction, some new transition. So then some no data, system exception, business exception, success. So some transactions are there and some states are there. So how you can able to understand why these four and why these seven? So let me explain one basic project. So we'll compare that basic project with here, so you'll get some idea about it. Okay. So as we discussed, uh, just doing the entering the details of students itself, we'll discuss about it. So how we are going to enter these 10 100 students details so into any one of the college applications, and how we are going to work on it. So we are going to use the applications are, we are going to use Excel, and we are going to use Chrome. In Chrome we have to go with the student application, and PDF, because once you enter the details of students, you will get the data in the form of PDF, like it's a kind of a confirmation. And the process is the first step. We need to read the data, read data from Excel, data from Excel. So this Excel is having 100 students, I can say. Then we have to do the login of student application. Student application, it's a kind of a web-based automation, I can say. Then we have to enter each student details, in application. When you are entering the each student details in application, we have to handle business exception, system exception also. So once you are done with entering the 100 students details, then what we have to do? Just we have to close all. No, once you enter each data, once you enter each student details, we'll get the confirmation in the PDF, right? So we have to read the PDF, and we have to check success or not. Then what we have to do, whichever the applications we have opened it, we have to close all applications, right? Whichever the things we are going to close it, we are going to close Excel, we are going to close the Chrome, we are going to close the PDF. So whichever the things we have opened it, we have to close it. So this is the process. This is a project, high level of project. We have to do it. Okay. So we let me explain the project again. So we are using these applications. The process is we need to read the data from Excel. So Excel is having 100 student details. So we have to enter each student details into the application. That application is authenticable, like you have to do the login and logout. And for each student details, when you are going to enter it, we have to handle the business exception and system exception. And we have to, once you enter the student details, will get some kind of a confirmation. We have to check that confirmation. Then once you are done with this 100 student details, what we have to do, whichever the applications we have opened it, we have to close all the particular applications which we have opened it. So this is the high level of process. So if you are going to implement this particular process in our RE framework, so how you can do that? So let me compare it with the RE framework. So here the RE framework we have it. So here our project is there. So first step, what we have to do? So we have to open all the applications, right? So we have to open these three applications. So what I am going to do to do this, I am going to do it in the init phase. Init phase means here. So initialization is there, right? So here what we are going to do. So whichever the applications we are going to open it, I am going to open all these applications here. So what will happen when you are going to open this application? So are you going to open these applications multiple times? No, right? So we are going to open these applications only once. So I'm going to open it here. So in the initialization, we have, when you double click on it, you can able to see the workflow. So here we have to build the workflow to open the applications which you required it. So I opened it all the applications. So here I can see two ways. One is when you are getting any exception while opening that particular application. So as we discussed in our project, we have to open Excel, Chrome, and PDF. So if the Chrome is not responding to open it, then why we need to read the student details from Excel? It's not required, right? The Excel is the Chrome is not working. Then what we have to do, we have to stop the process itself. We no need of working any further, right? So that's how they have built the RE framework. So if you are getting any error in the initialization, so directly it will navigate to the end process, like directly it will navigate it using system exception and it will navigate to the end process. So in the end process, what we have to build this one. So close all applications. So directly what it will do, it will close all the applications in the end process because we tried to open the applications. When we tried to open the application, what happened? We are getting some exception. We could not able to read that particular, we could not able to open that applications. So what, because of that, we are going to close whichever the applications we have opened it. So because there is no use of doing the process further. So that's how the RE framework, these two states will work. In the init stage, whichever the applications you want to use it, you have to open it. So if you are able to open it, then if everything is good, then get transaction data. If something happened, then end process and close it. So what is get transaction data then? So let me open the notepad and we'll compare. So you have applications open. So we got the data of 100 students. So where you will read these 100 student details. So here itself will read 100 student details in the get transaction data. So once you are able to read the 100 students details in the get transaction data, then what we have to do? We have to read each student one by one and you have to enter into the application, right? Student application. So here what will happen in this phase? In this state, you will get all 100 student details. Each transaction, so here you can able to see the header, right? So each transaction means the first student will come. The first student details will come into the process. So here in the process, what we are going to do, we are going to enter the details. We are going to enter the details, which are the details. we got it from the Excel. We are going to enter the details into the Chrome application. So when you are going to enter the details into the Chrome application, as I said, you may get that particular process as a system exception or business exception or success. Only three, right? So if it is success, success means you can able to enter the data, you can able to generate the confirmation PDF, you confirm that confirmation PDF also, then everything is done, right? So if everything is done, that's a success. So what you have to do? Okay, I'm done with the student one and I'm going to pick the student two, right? So that's how, if it is everything is success, see the success transition. So it will again navigate to the get transaction data. Why it is going to the get transaction data? Because only one transaction is done, it is going to pick the second transaction. So that's how the second transaction will also come. And this is how the third, fourth, if it is a success, or if you are getting business exception. So business exception means, so you got the student details, but the student details are not proper. So then what we have to do? So you have to send a mail. These student details is not proper in the Excel file. So that's how business exception will work. See, we'll do some alternative mechanism and it will pick the fourth item, fifth item, sixth item. But if you are getting any system exception, what you have to do? So when you are going to enter the data for one student, so that particular Chrome got that Chrome went into the unresponsive mode. So what we have to do? We have to close that particular browser. We have to open that particular browser again, and we have to work on it, right? So this is how it will work. So if you are getting a system exception, it will navigate from the this way. From system exception, it will navigate to the init. As we discussed, what we have done in the init, we have opened the applications again, right? So that's how it will open the applications again, and it will come to the get transaction data. In the get transaction data, it will check for the status, whichever the things are done, whichever the things are not completed yet. It will go with the not completed items, and it will pick that particular item, and it will do the process for it. So this is how it will work. So once 100 student details are done. So what it will happen? It won't go to the process transaction because there is no data. We are done with the 100 student. So what it will go? It will go with this particular transaction and it will navigate to the end process and it will close all the applications. So this is how the RE framework will work. You got some idea, right? So whichever the things we have discussed it here, so we can implement everything in RE framework with the way of using this template in the best practices, right? So using these particular four states and seven transitions, we can implement any of the project with a robust, with some kind of standard way. So that's how this RE framework will work. So any questions or we can wind up and we can take some feedback about these sessions which we have provided from past 15 days. If you have any questions, you can do the text in the chat. Yeah, we have one
Hello.
question here. Sorry, how to, sorry, one. Yeah, please, you can proceed.
Yeah, Pradeep, actually, I'm working on one project. And
Okay.
in that project, what happens, like I need to open one application inside Citrix. Now,
Mm-hmm.
in that application, what happens, like after we are completed with all the transaction, the complete time it takes almost like 1 hour to complete all the transaction. I have almost like 120 to 130 transaction in the queue.
Mm-hmm.
So in that time, what happened? Like when it goes to the end state to close all the applications. So that time, what happened? It gives me the error that the target application is not in the foreground. So in that uh, option, is it possible that because we are not going to use that application once we have extracted the data from that application, we are not going to use it anymore. So after extracting the data from there, we are going to convert it in Excel and
Mm-hmm.
keep it in the data table. Now we are not going to use that application. So is that possible that we can close that application in the initialization state itself?
Yes, you can do that. But the thing is, for closing the applications, we have multiple mechanisms, as I said. So you can close it or you can kill it. So as per you are getting an error, so it's a because foreground application is the target application is not in
Yes,
foreground, right? So
correct.
it's because of you could not able to figure it out that particular applications which is available in your machine. So at that time, what you have to do? So once you are able to prepare the data from that particular application, just kill it. So then it will
Yeah.
close that particular thing. So you can use that input data from the data table. So that will work.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. And we got one question, how to retry three times for an error occurred in at init state. No, it won't be in the init stage. Let me show you. So once you got an system exception, so here you can able to see the system exception, right? In the process itself, we have one exceptions here. So in
Yeah,
the set transaction,
Pradeep, like they have a question like if like in the init state, let's say that I'm trying to launch an application and there is something wrong happened.
Hmm.
Okay, how do I achieve a retry mechanism in the init state? Yes, we do have a retry mechanism in the process transaction state, but how to achieve something in the init state basically?
Okay, so if you want to do it in the init stage, what we have to do, we have to create a workflow manually, and we have to build it in our mechanism. We have to build it in our init also, so that will work. So what if we are not working on the queue-based data, but we are working on the data? So what we have to do, basically, RE framework is built based on the queue transition mechanism. So wherever you are reading the data using queue, just we need to change the variable type. Instead of queue item 2, we have to make it as a data rows. So we have to change that particular values type in everywhere where we have passed it in all the workflows. So that's how we can do that, but it's achievable. Yes, I can. I think we are good. So do you want to say anything? And one more thing. So as per the part of these particular trainings, we are giving the challenges also, right? So we are done with the first challenge. So we got almost 35 submissions as of now for that particular challenges in forum. So today is the last day for the first challenge. So we are going to post two more challenges in the forum itself. So whenever we post the challenges, we'll do the post in WhatsApp also. Please do complete that challenge because when you are doing the challenges, you will get some idea about the things how you can implement it. So I'll share the challenges soon once we publish into the forum. So and you know right, once you publish the challenges in the forum, you may get a chance to get a rewards from UiPath itself. So the top 5 members will get the rewards. So be active in the forum. So we'll post the challenges once we are going to post it.
Last but not least, we request you to provide the feedback. So we have just provided the link in the chat window. So we see around like 25 plus people there. Please provide some feedback on the same. Can you give use case for RE framework? Still, there is a lot of implementations we can do with the RE framework. So we are planning something in terms of providing some good knowledge on the RE framework. Maybe we will just post the updates on the same. Request everyone to provide the feedback. It's in the chat window. You can just provide the feedback which will help us in enhancing our particular curriculum and all. Right. Fine. Thanks for joining for the sessions. When is advanced training going to start? Yes, we are planning. We will announce it. Can we just have you fully in process? How can we do that? Yes, we can do it. All the changes we need to do itself in the get transaction phase, where whether it's a queue based or it's a data table or it's a linear process which will perform only once. So we need to do changes in the get transaction state. So it requires more time to explain, though we are just saying it can be done in the get transaction. It takes more time. So RE framework, it's not a session where we can complete in 1 hour, but we have given it just what we can achieve through the RE framework. So yeah, we are planning for something more detailed in terms of RE framework and all these things, where we will announce in the groups going forward. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks Pradeep, Patrudu, for the effort all we have put together for making this particular sessions successful and all. Yeah. Thanks everyone. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.